Okay, well, the next panel is a very special one for us. A lot of folks out there have been critical of the Hound of the Baskervilles, but we're very much on record as saying that the following actors we think are the greatest to ever inhabit those roles from that classic story. And they have come so far to be with us today.
Far and wide.
Yes. These gentlemen are here from the Philippines, from France, from Los Angeles. Yeah. And let's just bring them in. James Faulkner, Kristoffer Tabori, and Alastair Duncan. Well, it's up to you. It depends on how cozy you want to be.
Do I have to push a button? No. Does it work now?
I think you're on.
Fantastic.
Too cozy for there.
Too cozy?
Too cozy?
You're sinking.
Don't get too cozy.
God gave you a spine, boy. Use it.
What did you just say?
You just got to have it kind of close.
Hello?
You're
Oh, there he is.
Well, thank you for being here, gentlemen. It wasn't that long ago we spoke to you about the Hound, but you know, the stories you shared were wonderful, and frankly, just seeing the three of you here together again, I don't know. I hate using the word fanboy, but that's what I am right now. So,
Well, how long has it been?
how long has it been since you guys were last together?
Well, when did we make this show? When was it done?
This was
88?
That's the last time we were together, right? I mean, well, we knew each other a little bit more in Los Angeles, but we rarely saw each other.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, we didn't.
No.
But you're as fresh as you ever were. Both of you.
You got no answer, do you? No.
He's so intoxicating.
You just want to
I'm taken right back to sitting on that set with you. I was just like a dog in your lap.
It was very cute.
We've been playing catch-up outside in the green room and trying to remember some of the stories that are associated with the making of The Hound of the Baskervilles. And both Chris and Alastair were very impressed by the fact that the BBC are considering a remake of The Hound of the Baskervilles. They've told me I'm too old to play Stapleton, but I believe I'm on the short list to play the transgender housekeeper at Baskerville Hall.
He'll be wearing a wig.
It really shows how rehearsing a joke works.
That's so mean. That's so mean.
Well, we have a lot of questions we could ask you about the minutiae of the Hound of the Baskervilles, but I frankly would rather start by just asking you about your Saab 900.
My Saab 900?
Was it a Saab 900 that you had back when you were filming?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
A motor manufacturer that is no longer with us, I'm sorry to say.
Yeah.
They've been bought with the rump of Trollhättan, which I've been to. I've been to the Saab factory in Trollhättan. I sailed across the Canal with Griff Rhys-Jones. He wrote a book about it called To the Baltic with Bob. But he was so mean and rude to me in the book that I made him change the name of the character. But there was James sitting on his luggage in Stockholm Station. James has always had the perfect wardrobe for every given occasion. Today he was wearing I'm alighting from a train outfit. No, Griff. Oh, no, you don't. Change the name of the character. So we sailed all the way across the Canal, and there are a great many locks to start off on the Canal, and then you get to the other end, where you get the most enormous locks, and one of them is adjacent to the Saab factory at Trollhättan, and I was able to get off the boat. It was an elderly wooden sailing vessel, and took a tour around the factory and saw the demise of Saab. But yes, in those days, I did have a Saab Turbo 900 Aero, the best model they ever made, which was, I think during the show, it was silver with burgundy velour upholstery and a burgundy leather steering wheel. The only problem with the with the turbo aero was because it was front-wheel drive and putting over 200 brake horsepower through the front wheels was something known to those of you who are motorists as torque steer. Torque steer, from which it suffered quite a lot if you let the clutch out at 6,000 RPM.
Do you
So
ever play a
James,
villain?
why do you think they'd be asking you about the Saab 900?
Let me clarify my question a little bit.
Because
nothing
I don't know
about
yet how it connects to the Hound of the Baskervilles, but I'm sure you're going to bring us there.
I did not.
We only have 10 minutes
I did not
left.
bring the subject up.
Is this working? No.
I got a dead mic.
Oh, here.
It connects because he used to drive us all around in it. He'd pack us all into it and say, "Oh, come on, darling, we'll go and get some tea or whatever." And so we'd all be jammed into the back and he'd sit there in the front and drive like a maniac with us all going, "Duh, duh," thrown from side to side. But it was so much fun because it was so fast. It was
But remember why we were in the car with him.
because we were all acting together.
Because we were all on our way to location in our outfits.
Oh, that's right.
We were all on the way to the pub in our outfits.
Cup of tea.
I can imagine the three of you in the Saab, racing down the motorway. I'm trying to imagine Edward with you.
No, Edward was there.
Yeah.
No, Ted was there.
He wasn't
absolutely.
holding on for dear life.
no,
Yeah, he got the front seat.
Used to race
Don't
them
be
all.
seduced by the veneer of Ted Hardwicke.
Ted raced.
When the curtain went down, he was just like us.
Okay.
He actually raced a Morgan 8. He was a serious, he loved speed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
It was a Morgan 4.4, actually. No, 4.2.
Was it 4.4?
Morgan 4.2.
4.2, yeah.
Well, when we spoke to you guys, we'll talk about the show for a second, and then we can talk about cars and whatever else. But it's I think a couple of you mentioned there was a scene where you were all together, and it was great because you all got to spend so much time together. Even though James, you weren't really with them a lot of the time, but during the filming, there was a train scene on one of those really nice old trains that Granada was able to get a hold of for the day, and everyone said something similar, which was James was on the train, but he's not on the train in the show. Was there a scene that was cut? Was there a cutting room floor moment where...
I don't remember.
Don't remember?
Oh no, yeah. Don't you wander down the train in a disguise or something? Isn't that?
Oh, you may be right. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm sure that's...
Yeah,
because
yeah.
there'd be no other reason that he drove us all the way to
Yeah.
the... I mean, I know he liked to drive that car, and he certainly liked to get the attention that he got when he drove the car. But I think under these circumstances, since he was in costume, he must have been on call that
Right.
day.
And the fact was, he was on
have no
call
memory.
all the time because, we spent 3 days, I think I mentioned this, sitting in the caravan in Yorkshire, waiting for the rain to stop, chain-smoking cigarettes, and he had full makeup and hair all day.
Oh, yes.
Just sitting there, and then, so we just sort of sat there and giggled and watched the rain fall. It was...
I think I enjoyed being called every single day because I was renting my toupee back to the production.
Did you get a hazard fee for it when it went off when you drowned?
No, I didn't think to add that, really. I should have done so. Trick there.
Well, and speaking of missed tricks, we're such a fan of all three of you guys, but there's a moment we feel was a really missed opportunity, which is at the end of the episode when you and he are together in the cottage or whatever, and you're about to walk home across the moor. There was this moment where we could have had Faulkner and Tabori
Squaring off
in some way, a battle of wits or even just some kind of a conversational moment that we just really never get in the entire show. Right now, it's you two in a room shot through a window. There's nothing there. But do you ever regret not having a moment together?
Well, you guys spoke so brilliantly on your podcast about the film, and it made me realize how irresponsibly I approached this work. In that I just I looked at the scene that was given, and then you manage your way through it. But that there really was so much more to be discussed or to be found, and it was a shame that work, at least in my experience on that film, wasn't done. And yeah, I think it doesn't make any sense to me when I see it, and I watched it the other day, and I go, I'm in the house, and that poor girl is tied up downstairs screaming, and Ted Hardwicke hears it, and he hears it, and goes down and lets the dog loose, and there I am sitting smoking a cigar with, a stick up my rear end. It doesn't make a bit of sense, and it would seem to me that there's a fair amount of problems between he and I, and it would have been lovely, but that wasn't the course for that film.
It wasn't in the script, and it's not in the story. But for us, it would have been such a joy to see. It would have been to see that moment between those two.
Well,
characters.
It would have been a joy for me to be able to act with James Faulkner, because I don't think I do it all in that film, and I would have loved it. But
So it was never
yet
even
another thing. So
discussed.
we have to figure out a means before I drop dead that we can do it.
Did you know about the stage play that Ted and Jeremy did, the Sherlock Holmes play? Did you guys see it?
Yeah.
Because it would have been right around that time. Did you guys go?
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you recall about it?
I don't.
You know what? I did see it, and I've just remembered that I saw it because I don't recall anything about it either.
Yeah.
I went and saw it. And I remember meeting Ted, and we went out afterwards and had a drink. But yeah, no, it was totally unmemorable. Sorry. Whoops.
It was
It
different.
means you have to pay for your airfare.
Damn it.
What would Ted think of this today?
I think he'd love it. I think he'd actually be here sort of kind of astonished that everybody's, enthusiastic enough to actually come along and interested enough, which is wonderful. Thank you all for bringing us here together. I think he would have loved having the sort of this gang back together because it was, it was fun. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I know you guys were kind of a quadfecta or whatever you want to call it, but what was that dynamic like? Obviously he was the elder statesman. Did he offer you guys career advice? Did he give you acting tips, anything like that? It was just hanging out.
He was the youngest, had the youngest energy of any of us.
Yeah.
He loved to just giggle, and he was a wonderful adolescent.
I think one of the remarkable things about acting is that kind of seniority most often just doesn't exist. There's a kind of egalitarian thing that takes place between actors, and you just get on. You either get on or you don't get on. But I don't think that there's any of that structure.
Right.
There certainly wasn't with Ted.
Certainly not with Ted. No.
Yeah.
No. I behave now that I've achieved a degree of seniority rather differently. And I have young actors coming to me for advice about how to play a scene or handle the camera. And what they don't know is, of course, that I'm stealing from them and trying to stay current.
Did you ever see Jeremy? I mean, because Ted and Jeremy were together so much, and you guys spent so much time with Ted. Was he around at all when you guys were together after the shooting?
No, I mean the only time we went out, I remember going out with him was the time in the restaurant when we all went out and had dinner.
Yeah.
But no, he was always wonderfully sort of effervescent when we were there. But then he'd just go off by himself. And
We were just reminiscing about having dinner, the entire cast, during the shooting of Hound, in an Italian restaurant in Stoke. And it was a huge table. There must have been 24 of us on that table, I would think, cast and crew. It was an enormous table. And for some reason, somebody said, come on, Jeremy, do it for us, get up. And Jeremy got up and sang On the Street Where You Live to the entire restaurant, which was actually rather an extraordinary moment, especially as he was dubbed in the film of My Fair Lady. But the whole restaurant rose and applauded Jeremy for his rendition On the Street Where You Live. Mm-hmm. That was a genuinely memorable moment.
yeah, and he was wearing a V-neck sweater and a scarf, and he paid for everybody's dinner. He was phenomenally generous, and yeah, it was a great moment.
Yeah.
Did, especially Chris, rewatching the episode, were you reminded of anything that wasn't in the episode, just your memories together, like things that happened behind the scenes, offset?
I mean, I poured my heart out to you guys on that interview. And something, the one thing I didn't say, which probably I should have, which was I was hardly ever there, I realized, because I was doing another film in France, and then I was starting to direct a play in San Francisco, and so I was actually flying back and forth all the time. So I was always sort of flying in, and because I was shooting the next day, so I wasn't hanging around the way people like Faulkner were.
Well, I mean, one of the big things for this weekend was actually myself getting on a plane and putting up with air travel, and then I started thinking about you guys specifically, that you came here, you came all this way to come do this, and I just wondered, like, what was it like leaving the house to come and kind of relive this, see each other again? Was there any trepidation? Were you looking forward to it?
I was looking forward to it.
I just thought maybe we were torturing you guys, having you fly.
Not at all. No, what a treat. I mean, look at this. I mean, what you've done is extraordinary. You brought all these people together. That's for you. That's for you guys.
Thank you.
Well, and I have a friend here who's talking about what. You don't quite know what I have so little experience with these appreciation sort of events, so I don't have anything to draw on. But you certainly sometimes hear about the eccentricities that are often displayed by people who avidly are vested in an event. And I think what's been so beautiful here is that these are people who have watched this show with care and with love, and deservedly. Because Brett was extraordinary. I mean, it's why I wanted to do it, because I was a fan. I was watching these episodes, and I went, this actor is doing something that is on a level that is just magnificent. And I get to, as any actor knows, there's something so wonderful, or any director knows, there's something so extraordinary about being this close to the great actor acting. You get to see stuff that you just get to see stuff that's extraordinary. And so I wanted to work with him, and I was lucky enough to do so.
I think Alastair alluded to the fact that there might have been some improvisation on your behalf in the show, whereas the British actors would never do such a thing.
Well, certainly, it's let's attack the Americans. Betsy, join us here for a moment. Okay, I'll take it on.
I meant it as I said it as a compliment. No, it's interesting.
Yeah. You didn't have the guts to do it, did you?
I didn't. Yeah, I didn't know how to.
Yeah, sure. You just said the lines in the script. Yeah, that's all an actor has to do. Yeah, you're a parrot. Okay. Not all of us take that. I take my work seriously. I'm there to meet the requirements of the character. Yeah. I'm glad you gave me the opportunity to clear that.
I wanted you to put that up.
He's been harboring that for the last 30 years. It's so sad.
We're making progress tonight.
I mean, essentially, it's sort of the training is so very different in the USA and in the UK, and the training at acting schools is very much in the UK textually based, and we have real regard for the writing. This is rather more difficult to achieve in the United States. And which is why the training in the United States is largely behaviorally based. And in some cases, bad behaviorally based.
Can you throw down the gauntlet, Chris?
Can I move so that we can be together? I got the Americans on this side. I'll get you over here.
We were curious about that. I mean, you were the only American, I believe, on that entire program. Did this happen then? Was there picking on the American?
Of course there wasn't.
Okay.
We love it. No, you got to get it in if you get the chance.
Well, and we were talking, Chris, the other day about Brian Mills. I mean, let's talk about Brian Mills for a minute, because honestly, I'd like to pay our respects to him, because, as critical as people are sometimes of him, He did some great stuff. I mean, some really great stuff. He did another episode of Sherlock Holmes called Silver Blaze, which is among everybody's favorites. You know, and so it's not a mystery as to why they brought him back. I mean, obviously they're for this, but you had an insight which I thought was really great, and I don't know if you'd be willing to share that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, you set it up a little bit so that I'm not sort of, walking into a fuselage.
Well, I mean, I think on our podcast, and other people have made a similar observation, is just that I guess a lot of the blame for, the places where the glue doesn't quite hold together in Hound falls on the feet of, or the shoulders of Brian Mills. And I think I agree with you that it's not entirely fair to just do that and walk away. I think there's other factors, and you brought up one that I thought was especially salient.
Well, I mean, you had some extraordinary directors sitting out here earlier, and I was David Carson is a director whose work was very influential to me when I made the move from acting to directing, and he's an extraordinary director. But I think all of them would speak to that you're in an odd situation often as an episodic TV director, and even though this was a film, it was sort of within an episodic structure, where you are required to, you're brought in late, and you're expected to sort of not rock the boat and hopefully come up with something brilliant, but not something that everybody else can't take credit for. And there clearly are problems in the narrative of Hound of the Baskervilles and in its sort of how its tempo and its drive, at least as I experienced the film. And Brian was extremely nice and very gracious and gentle and managed the set terribly well. But I never saw that flair, that light, that he never focused a scene. And it seemed like it was a film that desperately needed it. But then you go, why was that happening? Why was he the choice of the director? And then hearing that this was a film that didn't have the budgetary allocation that they needed, you started to see maybe that some of the reasons that his work was constrained was because he wasn't expected to show up with too much. And it's a problem in our business that, you get into the mindset of let's just get this done and not create problems. And we escape because we don't have a live audience.
Right.
In the theater it's harder to do that because you got to step up there. Whereas everybody can say, oh well, the hell with it, I got paid, and that sort of thing.
But I think too, we were talking the other day about the fact that the producers hired Brian Mills. And so it's like you said, it's there was an expectation that they made that decision to bring Brian Mills in to do it, and so
what was it they were worried was going to happen if they brought in somebody who would say, I'll take this on and I'll.
Right, and I think as much as everybody's like, wow, too bad John Madden didn't get asked. If John Madden would have been brought in, the budget probably would have doubled, which could have been.
Well, maybe it would have, maybe it wouldn't have.
Yeah.
I mean, but you either come in to get the job done, or you come in to say, I'm going to hit this out of the park. Right? Yeah. And that's what I didn't feel from Brian Mills, that he came in with that kind of drive.
And I so wish he was here because, it would be so wonderful to hear. Again, like as Patrick Lau said earlier, who knows what happens to your film when it goes here or goes there. If you watch it in Germany, you might be seeing different... Well, there's so many editorial things that you notice. You guys picked up so brilliantly in your podcast that feel to me like secondary editing choices, because either something wasn't accomplished or somebody said, oh, we don't like it that way, let's start sticking this thing in, that thing in. Yeah. Interesting.
I haven't watched The Hound that we did recently at all, but there is an inherent difficulty in the structure of the narrative, in that Jeremy Brett's Sherlock Holmes is actually very little in the story.
Yeah.
And so it lacks that focus as well, I think, which only compounds what you're saying about bringing real inspiration to the unfolding of the narrative, because your leading character is frankly not there. Largely, he's traveling on his own and hiding in a cave.
Well, and I think it's expectations too, because if they would have changed the name of the show to the Dr. Watson and Sir Henry show, then expectations would have been a little different, which is a great thing that we got. We got a great little buddy cop drama.
Stapleton and the dog.
The rubber dog.
Yes. But I mean, there are so many, again, as we've said, so many elements of Hound that are, again, timeless, brilliant, beautiful, so much good stuff about it. So,
The locations are fantastic. I mean, I must say, it was my first ever trip to Derbyshire, and it was spectacular. But there were a lot of locations as well, which never really helps the focus on a piece. You're flying here, there, and everywhere every couple of days. You're off somewhere else and off somewhere else, and then, you get inside one of those extraordinary, very dark stone buildings on the Derbyshire moors, which are frankly alarming, with strange retainers, are the same colour as the oak panelling.
Do you guys? I mean, did you watch the show? Did you watch the Jeremy Brett Sherlock Holmes show over the years?
Well, I haven't since I originally watched it.
Yeah.
And obviously I already said that's what sort of drove me to want to take this job.
Yeah.
So no, but since you guys contacted me, then I sort of have gone back and started to watch stuff, and there really are some amazing episodes.
Yeah, I was curious what you guys thought of the reason it stays so evergreen. Why do people still go back to it now? I mean, I know the answer, but I'd like to hear
Because Jeremy was the closest anybody's ever come to actually, capturing the reality of Sherlock Holmes. Right. He was that amazing man who was away just, in his own world, thinking about things suddenly, and then would come out, would suddenly sing. Sherlock Holmes played his violin. Mm-hmm. Jeremy Brett suddenly sang, threw his scarf over his shoulder and left.
But then there were those sets, and then there was some beautiful photography, and the costuming in the films. I mean, there was so much detail that was so beautiful,
the music,
and is consistently there from episode to episode to episode.
Yeah.
It was that wonderful thing that so rarely happens when the right people are at that right moment, at that right time, and it fits in a remarkable way.
Yeah.
Going back to what I said earlier about textually based, I think everybody that worked on that show and collaborated on that show really looked deep into the text, and that's why the costumes were so accurate. That's why the sets are so accurate, and in particular, it's why Jeremy's complete exploration of what Conan Doyle wrote is so extraordinary and so mesmerizing.
To that point, what he did as an actor was so beautiful because he was a star in really that remarkable way that great stars are, in that he created an environment to work. And you felt that when you walked in the room with him. I think that's fair to say, isn't it? I mean, it was for you guys too, right? You just went, we're here to work, and this guy appreciates the work, and he loves it, and not... Yeah, and we're not... It's not my, we've all worked with stars who go, this is my space, and I won't be there for your off camera, or, whatever the nonsense is that they pull. That was never his. I mean, he was complicated and could be difficult, and I'm sure, made some people's lives miserable at moments in time. But it was always about the work. And that does something amazing, I think, for a set. Because when people see that person show up to put their heart on the line, everybody changes. The grips pick up the cables faster.
Yeah.
Just to lower the tone for a second. Well, I mean, after that, I what am I going to do? How am I going to follow that up, really?
Okay. I'll sit over there and you sit.
Very good.
turn on
You
me.
can tell he's been a director. can't you?
No. I'm trying to pay a compliment. I'm going to ask a dumb question.
I'm kidding.
Is what I'm saying.
All right.
Here we go. So, you famously, your line during your death scene was cut.
Yeah, well, yes, it's a tricky area. The Grimpen Mire, a man drowning in the Grimpen Mire. And we'd all seen this a great many times, where there's a couple of spiky trees and a lot of rolling mist and dry ice and things like that, and a shadowy figure sinks into the mire and gets deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper, and sort of glug, 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 and a few bubbles appear, and that's it, And I said to Brian, look, I think if you're drowning, you don't go quietly. Do you? I mean, there'd be a great deal of panic and fear and yelling your head off. You don't care who's going to come and save you. You don't care what you've done to them or what they're likely to do to you. Just get me out, or I'm a goner here. So, the camera rolled, and down I went and sank, and I started yelling and thrashing around and screaming at the top of my lungs, "Oh, sweet Jesus, save me!" Cut! I've got to about here at this point. Why have we cut? Exactly why are we cutting now? James, you can't say those words. Oh, sweet Jesus. No, you can't say that. Well, forgive me, I said, but if you've ever been to church or sung a hymn, you will know that every Victorian hymn written this period usually starts with the line, "Oh, sweet Jesus." So I don't think it's particularly shocking. I think it's rather apposite, in fact. Forgive me. So we have to do this again. Do we? Because you've cut at this particular juncture. I would have done it in one take, so we have to do this again. Is that what you're saying to me? So you've got to get me out of the Grimpen Mire. You have to take all my clothes off. You have to clean them. You have to give me a fresh shirt. And where the fuck is my toupee?
It's just all that was left.
And now my toupee's come off. And you've cut.
But can you imagine if they hadn't cut, because it would just have been floating on top of the water. And it'd be like, and we all come up and go,
The audience wouldn't have seen that bit.
So
Now,
All that
where's
was
the
left-
toupee? Is there a spare toupee? No, there's not a spare toupee. So I said, in order to reshoot the scene, then, we have to find the toupee. Now, so they built a tank, a great big tank, because it has to be in controlled circumstances, this. You can't just go out onto a moor and pick any old swamp, because you're going to lose the actor. It has to be controlled. So there's a tank that goes to a certain depth, and you've got to act drowning in a swamp. So it's sort of muddy water, and peat, and fuller's earth, and a lot of bits of burnt cork. You can't see anything. There's no possible way of going in there. Even if you were a diver with a mast, you still wouldn't see anything. I said, has anyone got a long stick? Thank you. Half an hour it took to find this wretched thing before we pulled it out. Dripping like this. Which then has to go off to hair and makeup, and get cleaned up and dried out, and I'm sent off. So there's about a 2-hour gap before I eventually get back to the side of the set. And you can call turnover, or as they say in Italy, much preferred, motore. And I did it again, but this time we did it in one take, and I did yell. They may have cut my off the soundtrack, but I yelled like a good one as I went under.
can we have a little bit of it?
No, it's too long ago. I don't remember. What are you doing?
Would this help?
Bog juice. But then, of course, comes the moment when you have to do the ADR, you have to dub it, possibly, because the sound wasn't too good, and it wasn't too good, and that's about 6 months later, and you have to do... I'm drowning acting in front of a microphone. Not easy to do, actually. So I got an apple, and I sort of half ate an apple, filled my mouth with water, and attempted to reproduce the screams that might have been requisite at the time as Stapleton went into the bog. What the hell's in here? Bog juice. Stapleton's own bog juice.
I don't know if I'd do it, but...
Dear God. There's no chance of me trying that.
What is in that, Luke?
It's just some stuff. Don't worry about it.
Well, I don't know. I don't know how we can thank you guys for
Got
coming
that
as
from
far
the
as
river,
you came.
Amagona.
But seeing you guys here, having you here today, it means a lot to us. And I know I don't know if you heard the intro, but for whatever the Hound of the Baskervilles is to us, the three of you are the very best actors who have ever inhabited those roles. And believe me when I say it, we've watched a few adaptations. I've even watched more since we did the Hound of the Baskervilles podcast. And every one I watch makes me come back to this one with a renewed love for what you guys accomplished on it. And I wish we weren't out of time because I could listen to you guys talk all night, but I'm so happy that you're here, and I hope you'll hang out for a bit and talk off mic with us.
And hopefully you guys are having a good time.
If you have any closing thoughts, we're more than happy to keep going. But
Just thank you for inviting us. Thank you for inviting me. It's been a pleasure just to be here and to hang with these guys.
yeah.
We'll see what we're like at the end of the evening.
I hope it is not another
Thank
20
you, everyone,
years
for
until you
coming.
guys hang out together, because you guys, there's something very cool going on here, and I think maybe we should talk about making a movie. I don't know. I feel like we could figure something out with the three of us, with the
Just
five of us.
yeah. You've got our numbers.
Yeah.
We're available.
I may not be. Thank you.